Well, I'm gonna get us started. Hey, welcome to the first 7 to 8 Productions webinar. Yay. My name is Jandi Linde, and I'm thrilled to be having an exciting conversation with one of Pittsburgh's most inspiring voices in film, PJ Gaynard. During this webinar, we will be talking about many different things like running a film company, the film industry, and just independent filmmaking in general. So, without further ado, let's welcome PJ.
Hello.
Yay.
Um,
Awesome.
uh,
To start us off, could you just introduce yourself real quick?
sure. My name is PJ Gaynard. I'm an independent filmmaker, and I've been working in film and video for about 30 years, which seems like a long time when I say it, but it just sort of happened. I didn't know that I was going to be a filmmaker in high school, and then in college I found it. But I'm Pittsburgh based. I run a production company called Milk Fudge Productions. I'm in IBEW5 as a camera operator. I shoot sporting events, some at the University of Pittsburgh, but also for the Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates. I am a former member of IATSE 489 and IATSE 728, and I flirt with the idea of joining Local 600 as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, awesome. Um, so for a little fun question to start off, what's a 30-second elevator pitch to give us an idea of your filmmaking story?
Oh God, it is. It goes like this, right? You're kidding me. Like anybody who thinks that they're going to go in a straight line in this industry is just is silly. Look, I went to school in Rochester, New York. I grew up here in Pittsburgh, in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, where Saras's is. But I went to school at RIT for engineering, and then while I was there, I had a total meltdown, and then found filmmaking. And I did film there. I was the president of my class and of my department and of my school. And then when I graduated, I had limited work opportunities. I did a bunch of stuff, and then I moved to Boston. And I was in Boston for a year working for a union gaffer. And then I moved back to Rochester because I met the hottest girl who probably has ever existed. And I worked in Rochester for a couple years at a production company, and I shot a lot of event type stuff. Um, and then I married that hot girl, and we moved to Los Angeles, where I worked in lighting and also started to establish myself as a director and a director of photography. And I was there for about 11 years until 2015, at which point we had a baby in 2013, and I started to wonder, could I do the thing that I love in the place that I love? And so we moved home in 2015, and I have been in Pittsburgh since then. So I've been home about 10 years. Um, and I'm happy to report that I can do the thing that I love in the place that I love. And I live here. I've got two children, and I'm still married to the hottest girl in the world.
Sounds like the life. So kind of going back just a little bit, after you graduated RIT, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
went to RIT.
yeah, how did you like first start finding work? Like I know you mentioned about your journey to Boston and stuff, but like when you first got out, how was your journey to finding like work?
So the most important thing that you have to understand is it starts with a grain, right? It starts with one thing. It did not start at the end of school. It started in school. While I was in school, I made myself indispensable to people. I worked really, really hard. I had my own office in school. I had my own budget line. Um, but also, I found an ad on the wall, um, where I found a bunch of ads on the wall, and I would just do random jobs while I was in school. So one was at makeup counters. There are women who spend lots of money on makeup, but they don't know how to do their own makeup. And in 1995, there were no phones. So if you wanted to if you went to a makeup counter and you had a pro makeup artist do your makeup and you bought $500 worth of makeup, you might not know how to do it. So I would film close-ups of women's faces and hand them a VHS tape the moment that they finished. But it was for Chanel. So I was working for Chanel. Um, another one of my early jobs. This I saw an ad on the wall at my college where this guy needed help shooting weddings as a second shooter for weddings for video. So I would go, he taught me how to operate a video camera at weddings. And so I would go and assist him for weddings. And I did that for quite a while. And then he had a competitor who was desperate for help. And he let me go help his competitor. That guy shot a little bit of weddings, but mostly sports like cheerleading highlight tapes and cheer events and football and basketball and boxing. And I shot all of that stuff. And when I moved back to Rochester after my year in Boston, I ended up working for that guy full time. And that's those sporting events, that grain, right? The one thing leads to another, leads to another. That's how I shoot like Steelers, Pirates, Penguins now. It's only because when I got to Pittsburgh, I said, oh, I can shoot sports. I did it in Rochester 15 years ago. And they said, okay, we'll let you go shoot. So everything is connected, but I didn't wait. And nobody needs to wait. They need to work now. The other thing is I did get jobs as a production assistant. While I was in school, I got them. And then I got them when I was out of school as well. I think you have to take work because I've seen what happens to people who don't. They get jobs doing non-film work, which is fine, but I wanted to be working in the film and video industry, and that's what I do. And when I don't do that, I lose my mind if I'm doing something else. I could never do like work at Giant Eagle. I would lose my mind.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally understand that. So since your journey, like you said, like you like wanted one way or another to be somewhere around film and video, how do you balance your like creative endeavors with that with financial stability, especially in such an unpredictable kind of job that this is?
Well, I think you got to look at your bank account, right? You got to, you have to do some simple math and say, like, this is how much money I need to make every month so that I can keep living. And when you know that number, and that's a number, then you start to say, look, I got to make some money here. I got to make this work. No, I think that it's a balancing act because there's some things you have to do in between, like going like I want the big payday and I want the first job and even between like I was in school and I got no job and I have a job. If you're in school right now and you're watching this, you need to get internships. You need as many internships as you can get, and you need to get them where you need to make a list of 20 things that you wish you were, 20 companies you wish you were working at, local or non-local, and then you need to write to them and see if they have an internship program and how can you get in there. And if they don't take you the first time you apply, you have to say like, what skills or resources, what am I missing that turns a no into a yes? And I think when you get out of school, the responsibility on you remains the same. What is going to turn a no into a yes? Like, is there somebody that I need to meet? Is there a group of people that I need to be around and help? Or is there a skill or that I don't know yet that I need to make sure that I learn? And I'd love to say that, oh, hey, when you go to school and get a 4-year degree in film or video, that you're going to have all of the skills that you need when you leave, but you will not. Some of these schools that people go to for film and video, they're wonderful, but they teach you how to become a director. But they only need one director, and they're probably not going to choose a person who's right out of school to do it. So you have to say, like, all right, well, are you hiring production assistants? Who are you hiring, and how can I get in on that? I do that. I recommend regularly that people go to Google Type in film production company, video production company, write or call these production companies and say, hey, how can I get on your freelancer list? Research what good resumes look like and make one. And there is a difference between a freelance resume and a full-time resume, right? A resume that an HR person looks at versus a freelance resume for a TV show or a movie that's in town. When you know the person who's getting your resume is hiring somebody right now for tomorrow at 7 a.m. And those resumes look different. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I really do think it's a balancing act. And like I'm my wife calls me Mr. Free because I take free work. I still take free work. And I think we all have to balance paid work with free work, but you have to keep striving. And one of the things that I often talk about is this yin and yang of making your own work and working for others. You have to be making your own work, right? And that is a non-paid activity, at least in the start. And we know it's a non-paid activity. And your own work can permeate in different ways. If you're calling yourself a director of photography, you need to be working on your reel. And then you need to be taking, maybe it's the 48-hour film project or a short film that a buddy wants to make, or you if you want to be shooting, you gotta find somebody who wants to direct and find somebody who wants to write and package a piece together so that you have something to shoot. You know, I think if you want to be a director, you gotta be making your own work. And it's not going to be paid initially. It's the same thing with producing, right? It's when you have a body of work that you all of a sudden become enticing for those who have a little cash and want to see something get made. And they can see that you are successful at doing it because your website is there and the reel is there and your people hear about you around town. So, but that doesn't happen without your own work. At the same time, that's the yin, right? You got to have the yang. You got to work for other people. So if you don't have people to work for, make a list of people that you look up to. You need to have a list of advisors that you don't work for, but that you take to coffee on your dime. And once you get them to coffee, you say, this is what I'm doing. What do I need to be doing? You got to find somebody who's already well beyond you so that they can look at you and say, this is what you need to do. And you don't ask them for a job. But if they know what you want and you're clear about what you want, then it will happen. So a lot of times I talk to people about, there's this thing called The Secret. It was a book out several years ago. It was total weird, thoughts about the universe and stuff like that. But the fact is that The Secret is stupid and real. Uh, if you put it out in the world, what you want to do, other people know it. And if they're good people, they will try to help you get there, especially if it's not what they want, right? The person, your buddy who's a director does not want to be a DP. And if they don't want to be a DP and they hear about a DP opportunity and they know you want to be a DP, they'll say, you should call my buddy. He wants to be a DP or she wants to be a DP. So you have to put it out there like, this is what I want. And you're allowed to have more than one goal. And you can be duplicitous. You could separate people and say, like, these people think I want to be a marketing person. These people think I want to be a writer. These people think I want to be a makeup artist. And all of those things are fine. But you have to tell somebody something. You can start with one thing is probably a good idea. But most people, like you say, like, I'm willing to be a production assistant. I'll go, I'll do it. I'll get the coffee. I'll work 14 hours a day. I'll work 7 days a week. I love this. I want to eat it up. But it's okay to do that and say, yeah, I'll take the job and still want to be a director or a writer or a DP or an art director or a makeup artist or whatever that goal is. And let people know I'm so happy to be here today and be helping you. But if you ever hear about an opportunity, think of me, or can I assist that person? And that's how you build that list of advisors, right? You start assisting uh, or helping people who are in the position that you want to be at. And then you know, they will get a job that they don't want, that they think is below them, and they will give it to you. And thank God, that's the win. You gave it to me, and I wanted it. And the thing that you didn't want, I want, and I get to use you as the advisor while I do it. Right? That's the win. Right? So building this list of advisors and it's no lie, like, and that's why I say you don't want to ask them for a job, because you want to get their advice. Advice is easy, advice is free. Jobs come with like Jobs are like another level, right? Because the scariest person is the person you don't know, right? And if you're the boss and your job is on the line and you go like, well, this person, I don't know them. I would much rather have a recommendation. I would rather anybody that somebody will vouch for. But I think that's the start to answer your question.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. Yeah. It's like you have to put yourself out there to have that door open and make those like sacrifices, aka free jobs. But at the end of the day, they're things that get you to the door, like in the door.
And when you do the free job, the thing is when you do the free job, you gotta own it. You
Mm.
gotta love it. The free job that you do, where you're sort of like not excited to be there, like sort of like going like, well, this is free the whole time, like not loving it, that's not gonna help. Like at the end of that's not gonna help. Oh, there's one other piece of advice. This is like the key piece of advice that I want to give everybody who's watching this. Make a list of things you want in your life. Make a list, and it's your list. You can put anything you want on it. You want to kiss a girl? Write it on the list. You want to make a movie? You write it on the list. Try to make them to be concrete things that you can actually check off the list someday. But it's your list. You write whatever you want on it, and then you put it next to your bed. You make sure it's real. It's not just on the internet. It's got to be real. And it's got to be next to your bed. And when you go to sleep at night, you look at that list and you say, did I work on anything on this list today? Even a minute. Did I do anything? And some days the answer is no. But if most days the answer is I did one thing, it took 1 minute, that's all I had, but I worked on that list. Those are good days, because I think if you go weeks and months and years and the things on that list you did not do anything about, you are going to realize that either the list is wrong or you're doing the wrong stuff, and you'll wonder why you don't like your life. So you got to work on your list.
No, yeah, I like that advice a lot, actually. Yeah. Um, so speaking of making your own work, um, you are an entrepreneur, and you have your own business, Goat Milk Fudge. How, how, like, oh my gosh, do you know anything about running a business, when you started Goat Milk Fudge? Like, how was your journey with creating that, being like an entrepreneur in a creative field?
It was all right. So you have to understand a couple of things. Um, Number one, when I was a kid, my dad was a plumber and he owned his own business. So my parents were divorced and they live a block away from each other. And my mom went to work and got a paycheck and got paid every 2 weeks and worked hard. My dad did not exist in that world. His world was wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, drink coffee, walk around, make phone calls, write invoices, go to service calls, go to people's house and do work, and then come home and try and make it all work. And so I grew up working with my dad. I actually worked for my dad when I was a kid, digging ditches, like doing plumbing work, whatever that meant. And and sort of understanding what a small business was like. And a lot of filmmaking is like a small business, but of course it gets bigger than that, right? So uh, as I have grown into an adult and developed this company, for a long time it was a paper company. It wasn't a physical place that you could go. I worked out of my house. I had a spare bedroom for a long time. That was my office. And then for a while, there was a lot of stuff in the garage. And then I had a grip truck and I would go out and do shoots on location. And then it wasn't really until 2021 that I finally rented a space that I work now out of a 4,000 square foot studio space that it's a rental, but it's mine. And we make stuff here all the time. And I go to work at my place. Um, Along the way, I've had to learn some lessons, and I'm still learning so much. I'm not going to claim to be a master as a businessman. I know enough to be dangerous, and I know how to make movies, and I know how to help people when they have a message that they want to get out there. It's not just feature films. I work on every single different type of film and video work. I have a client right now, Valiv. She is a tattoo artist and she wanted some really good quality social media videos. So I'm shooting some social media videos for her of her doing tattoos and stuff. And then, I have another client, GBU Life. They asked me to make commercials for them. And I make commercials and I hire 20 of my friends and we go out and make commercials that air on KDKA and stuff like that. So not all of my work is my work, right? Sometimes I'm shooting the Steelers and the Pirate games, and I'm a camera operator and I'm involved in somebody else's production. And so I do think that I still work a balance of it being my work and being others. But it is definitely a learn as you go kind of thing. And I wish I could say I have a formal MBA or anything like that. And if you have that, that is so great that you have that at your disposal. I don't. So I find myself seeking advisors and asking people like, how do I do that? I think I want that. And then learning how to do it and adding it to my repertoire of things that I have and I do.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, that's really cool that you are kind of like learning as you go and like seeking community to guide you. I think that's very inspiring.
It's interesting you
Um,
mentioned that. One thing that I wrote down in my notes um, was about where I gain valuable advice. 'Cause I was thinking about that recently. And the place so I gain an incredible amount of advice by talking to my friends. I will call other filmmakers that I'm good friends with, and we will talk about work. And we do it all the time to the point where, like, we don't talk about, like, girlfriends or boyfriends or anything like that. Like, we don't talk about that. Like, we have kids, we don't talk about it. We talk about cameras, we talk about lights, we talk about edit software, we talk about like clients. We do it all the time and we're constantly going back and forth. And when I don't know the answer to something, I pick up the phone to one of those core people in my network and I say, how do I do this? And it's not that I don't go to the internet and research. I absolutely do, just like everybody else, like YouTube University, right? And I go to the internet and try and find everything I can. But sometimes that's not enough. You need to hear from a person. And so it's my network that I get a lot of advice from. Like if I don't know, like from a business perspective, if I don't know how to do something, I'm gonna pick up the phone and like call somebody and be like, what am I missing here? Um, because I don't, when I was in school, right, I had professors that I could ask, but I don't anymore. Um, and so that's sort of what I do.
Awesome. Yeah. Friends are very, very valuable at the end of the day. You said that you've been in the industry for 30 years or so. So that means that you've seen the industry change in terms of technology as well as the way that stories are told and distributed. What are the biggest challenges, I mean, changes you've witnessed, especially in Pittsburgh, and where do you see the industry heading in the next 10 or so years?
Well, let me just take you back for a second to talk about how people get into the industry and where I see we see changing trends, and some trends have stuck around a while, right? So in the there's this trend. People used to go and shoot the news when they first started. A lot of people would go and shoot the news. There are some people who stayed in the news, right? Like that's what they went to school for, and they're amazing at it. And then there are other people who sort of just, it was like a pit stop along the way. There were some people who were combat photographers, right? A lot of some of the best ASC directors of photography, people like that. They came from shooting in war photography, right? On real film in the battlefield. Um, that is still happening. There are people who join armed forces and go and learn that way, right? There are other people who came up, I think about the 80s and the 90s. It was a great time to establish yourself through music videos. Music videos really paid the rent for a long time. It's not that that still exists even in Pittsburgh. I know some guys who pay the rent by making hip hop music videos, um, and other types of music videos, but it's not as core as it once was. We also there's a group of people who shoot weddings, and some people, like I said, for some people it's a pit stop along the way. For other people, they are absolutely laser focused on shooting weddings and event style work, and that's where they see their bread and butter. And I don't think that's going to go away. But the style of weddings, when I was shooting weddings in 2000, in 2001, we were making a 2 hour super wedding. Nobody does that now in that industry. They make like a 7 minute cut, maybe a 10-minute cut is the maxi cut. It's significantly shorter. For a long time, we saw people making web series. I remember when I was living in Los Angeles, there used to be a sign, I think it was on Highland Boulevard, that said, everybody gets a web series. Um, right? And I don't see web series as being made like they were maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. We were shooting them all the time. Reality TV was a core way to get into the industry, and it was really big for a while. And it's not that there isn't still some reality TV, but it's not like it was for a minute. It was crazy. And a lot of my friends, they needed work and they got in through reality TV, and they turned into documentarians, and some of them stuck there. I had several friends that worked on Big Brother, and they worked non-union in Big Brother, and then they became union members, and Big Brother sort of kept that separate for a long time. Um, some of those have gone on to work on the Academy Awards, the actual like shooting crew for the Academy Awards, and some other jobs like that. Um, and now we've seen the rise of social media, right? We're knee deep in it now, where people get jobs shooting social, right? A lot of, people, it's not that they won't get other work, but we see people who are like, well, this person needs a social media campaign, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make some videos for that, and then I'm going to hopefully spin that into another opportunity. And I think we all see the future of this AI stuff coming in, and those who know how to use it, and who get good at it may be provided an opportunity. I have several friends who bristle at the absolute idea of it. They hate it. I'll tell you from my perspective, I I continue to see a place for people who make things in a homemade way. There's for people who make their material with care and who take time and effort. There seems to always be a, a focus. The viewer loves that. and they live for that. And they go like, I see it, I see it. So, um, I see a trend towards some AI work, and I see the backlash of that, which is somebody saying like, yeah, but this wasn't that. This was homemade, and it's special, and it's unique because of it. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it definitely does, yeah. Because at the end of the day, this is like a humanistic art. And so we're the viewers craving something about the human experience for sure.
Yeah, and oh, that's such a big statement, Jenny, because we like they're desperate for the human experience, and I really question if um, AI can exactly provide it. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, I see it both ways, right? Like, we don't see people going to the movie theater like they used to, but when they go to the movie theater, they love it. They
Mhm.
absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So, like, how long before people go like, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be like, I, we see in the country right now an epidemic of people who like get real sad. They are like, you have all this social media and you are so sad and you feel so lonely. And it's like, yeah, because I'm at home looking at a screen at the end of the day and I'm not out with real people
Hmm.
laughing and conversing. And, I think we'll continue to see like people will say, like, oh, you have a cell phone. Great. Don't look at it while you're near me, right? Like, pay attention to me and pay attention to your friends and be with us. So, I don't know. I wonder about that.
Yeah, for sure. Me too. Um, so our last like Q&A question between us and everything is you've been here at you're Pittsburgh native and everything like that, and you've moved back. What makes Pittsburgh's film community and the whole film community unique? Like, and what are some resources or like organizations in Pittsburgh that every local filmmaker should know about?
Yeah. So, I think that the Pittsburgh film community is extremely welcoming. It's filled with very, very knowledgeable people. It's filled with people who are so passionate about their work. I remember, when I was in Los Angeles and I went to move home, someone said to me, "Oh, you're going to be a big fish in a small pond." And I didn't really like that because I didn't like it then, and I certainly don't like it now because it indicates that there's nobody any good here. And I don't that's not true at all. And when I got here and I was working in Pittsburgh, I got a job. I was teaching at CCAC. I was teaching film and video at CCAC, and I wrote online about my boss. My boss was George Jaber at the time, and a person that I look up to in LA, who helped me so much in my career and is on my list of advisors and stuff. He said to me, George Jaber. And I said, yeah, George's my boss, and I really look up to him. He said, George is the person that he looks up to, that he used to live in Pittsburgh and I didn't even know it. And that George, that same guy. So like I think Pittsburgh is unique, but I think that it is indicative of what you can find in a lot of mid-sized cities, which is there are incredible people here who are desperate to make cool stuff and good stuff. Um, so, you know, is it different than Los Angeles or New York or Atlanta? Yeah, it's different. It's Pittsburgh. It's the city of champions. Everybody's a champion here. Um, and it's not as big. It's true, In when I was in Los Angeles, there were 300 positions that I could see that they were being hired for every day. I could see them on Craigslist at the time. It was Craigslist, but you could see, so many. Look, there's a little less work here, but there's less people trying to get it, and I do think that there is work to be found.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, good
Um,
to know. Pittsburgh is such a special city. It truly is.
Oh,
N
were you talking about organizations that you should check
oh
out?
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, I mean, I do think it's all of our responsibility to gather resources, right? to keep. I mean, you got to collect. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like you're using people, but you have to collect people, right? You got to know like who can do this stuff, who is out there. I'm not alone. When you're on an island, when you're all by yourself, very, very difficult. So you got to collect a team of people and resources that you can rely on. I mean, I look at Carnegie Screenwriters as a great place because they'll read your work and they'll give you advice and they meet once a month and they make movies together and they do things and it's all free. They meet at the Mount Lebanon Public Library one Saturday every month, but they have a very active Facebook group. Light Bulb Rentals is a wonderful place to rent stuff. Cine Lease and the camera department and the video house and Here Corp are also places that rent stuff, and they're not the only ones. But I do think rental companies you have to collect. In other cities, share grid is really big, and there is a share grid market here, but it's small. The one thing I'll tell you is occasionally it's good to rent something from share grid because you go and you meet that person. And when you meet that person and you realize what they have, you actually find out they're pretty darn talented. And maybe there's a way to work together, So it's sort of like a secret backdoor network opportunity. You should know about the Pittsburgh Crew Connect, which is a quarterly event that I put on. The next one will be in January, and there will be info about it all over the Pittsburgh Filmmakers Facebook group, which you should be a member of. And you can ask me about it. My info is in the doobly-doo here. But at that Crew Connect, we have usually the last two, we've had over 250 people there. It's been like a rock show. And companies will come up on stage and say what they're up to. And everybody in the audience is trading business cards and talking about the projects that they're doing, whether those are free or paid projects. And you think that the paid people would be mobbed, but they're not always. I've been to these Crew Connect events where nobody goes to the person that has them paying work. Um, so that happened to me one day, a couple years ago. Ron Bruno, who runs the video house, he was at a Crew Connect event, and he said, "Yeah, I regularly we do shoots for ABC and CBS and NBC and ESPN," and nobody went and talked to him. Like I couldn't believe it. So I work for Ron, and he's a regular part of my financial outlook. Um, but there are, I mean, I think you have to build that group, even if it means, like I said, going to the Google and typing in production companies and starting to build that network by getting your info out on a freelancer list. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's also the Film Pittsburgh. They have an event every year called well, they have Pittsburgh Shorts and Three Rivers, which are big festivals that sometimes your work might get in, but even if your work doesn't get in, they invite filmmakers here from around the world, and those filmmakers come, and you should go and watch their movie. And when you're moved by their film, you should walk up to them and tell them, "Man, I'd like to make something with you. That movie was great. The only thing it was missing was me." You know? So, but they have a weekend event in between Pittsburgh Shorts and Three Rivers where they teach people skills and they have speakers come in and you can go and sit there for 2 days and they've had some incredible guests. Like Justine Bateman came and spoke, and it was not a big room, and she was answering questions and very involved. So they regularly have big time people come and speak at their conference, at their filmmaking conference. So I do recommend that you hit every local film festival hard if you're looking for work, because you're going to find people who are making things. Um, and then, pass those business cards, start to seed the market. Remember, it's no one person's responsibility to take care of you. It's but everybody will help a little, right? So if you expect that guy is going to take me, that has not been my experience. My experience has been small, incremental growth over years, and then you make things work. Oh, that brings up another interesting point. We still have time, right, Jandy? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So it takes a couple years to get established, to make things work when you work in a new marketplace. So if you're just getting out of school and you feel like you're new in the Pittsburgh marketplace, you got to give it a couple years of work from you before you can say, like, yeah, I'm starting to make some progress. It will take a couple years. And if you're moving, if you go like, yeah, but I'm thinking about moving. Well, my advice to you is, first of all, move a place that you want to be. And you might want to be there for all kinds of different reasons. Find a place you want to be and then be there. And when you're there, know that it's going to take a couple years to establish yourself in that marketplace. I remember when I graduated college, this one girl graduated with us. She was the star in our school. She was incredible, and she was getting jobs at Kodak, which at the time was really outrageously important. And so she went to Los Angeles, and in 3 months she came back. And I was like, "Why are you back? It's only been 3 months." And she's like, "Well, Los Angeles didn't work for me." And I was like, "Oh man, well, that's that's 3 months is not enough. It's not enough time." So I really think it's important that you spend 2 to 3 years, um, and no matter what you're doing in your work, remember, you got to find balance. You got to find balance, not just work. That work-life balance is for real. I have a wife, I have 2 kids, I love them so much, and they really don't care what I do all day. They just want dad to come home and hang out with them, and that is good for me. I love all my filmmaking friends. I love everything I do, but I have a family and I have a life, and so I think that's important for you too. So if you move someplace and you only do work, eventually some part of you is going to be empty, and you got to fill it. And you don't have to have a wife and kids like me. You can do it your own way, but you got to have something, no matter what it is. You got and those things that you have are going to inform your own personal work, which is good. So really, you having a life and things outside of work are going to make your work better. So um, I don't know. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does, beyond belief. Thank you so much. Um, so right now we've opened up the Q&A to the chat, and our first question that was asked is, what common mistakes do you see new filmmakers or PAs make?
Hmm. Um, so uh, the common mistake that I see new people in the industry make is they undervalue their experience. Do not undervalue your experience. If you went to school and you made a bunch of movies, write them on your resume, right? You made it. It's like, oh, but they're student films. I don't care. You did it. You did it. You did something. And yeah, later you can replace them. You can put on some big time thing that you worked on, and it'll happen much faster than you think. But having a resume that says you never did it is an undervaluing of yourself. I have one guy, I looked at his resume and I said, "Have you ever made a movie before or worked in film and video?" And he goes, "Well, I don't know if you count it, but like I have a YouTube channel and I've got 100,000 followers." And I was like, "Dude, I count it. Man, I count. That's for real. That's so real. Like, you've made how many YouTube videos?" And he's like, "I don't know, like a couple hundred YouTube videos." I was like, "Wow, you don't have any of those on your resume? Those don't count to you?" So please don't undervalue what you've done. I think it's important that you be able to show somebody what you've done, especially initially. The other thing is resources, especially when you mention production assistants. I often recommend people make up a production assistant resume, a freelance resume. Your freelance resume needs to say your name at the top and the department you are working in. So for production assistants, that would mean my name, and then right underneath it, it says production assistant. And then, because this is for freelance work, it does not have my address because I am a sexy beast and no one needs to come to my house unless they're sending a check. Then underneath it, it says all the jobs I work as a production assistant on. And it needs to say the name of the movie or the TV show or the short film or whatever. It needs to say the immediate supervisor that I had, whoever was my immediate supervisor, not the director. They don't know who I am, but the second AD did, and they know that they know what I did for them, right? And then it's got to say, it's got to say the type of job that it is, right? And it's got to say, I worked as the production assistant. So when I look at your resume, it's like PA, 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 PA. And you're like, this guy did it like 20 times. So it's a no-brainer. They're not a nobody. And I actually recognize somebody on that resume, and I'm going to call and ask about it. So you can put like at the bottom of the resume, you can have additional people who could be your oh, what do you call it? The person who recommends you. But really, every supervisor is a recommendation, right? Because they're going to know somebody on that list. And if they don't, well, they'll meet them soon enough, right? But I do think even when it's the first thing that you've ever done, it's never quite the first thing. You can have a skills and resources section on your resume. It's very important. Uh, Skills and resources you have. Well, for production assistant, you have a car. You got to have a car. You have a working car. You have a driver's license. You have a, oh, hey, I'm giving myself a thumbs up. You have a driver's license and a car and a laptop computer and a working cell phone. And those are real resources. And you know how to use Google, all the entire Google suite and Microsoft or the Office suite, right? Microsoft Office. Just knowing that is an incredible amount of resources that somebody will make use of. Even if you didn't have a lot of experience. I often think like you can twist experiences, right? So you might be like, well, this is my first time working on a movie, but I worked at Starbucks for a year. Well, my God, bro, you're going to get that Starbucks order right. And I think when you put your non-film work on your resume, you have to twist it so that somebody in the film industry can see it and say, like, I could see how that could help us. Like if you worked at like Kohl's and you wanted to get a job in clothing, like in the wardrobe department, and you're like, I worked at Kohl's for a year. I organized clothes like all the time. You can see how very easily somebody in the wardrobe department would be like, that person is they're gonna get the clothes on the rack, and it's not gonna be weird. It's gonna be, and if I want them to fold a shirt, it'll look good. Like that's giant. So I do think there's a way to spin it, and you have to spin it without lying.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. This is awesome. It's like resume 101. That's awesome. Um, our second question, on like the talent side of the industry, how and when should an actor effectively approach a talent agency with a focus on TV and film, you think?
Mm. Hmm. Okay, so the talent industry is like a completely other beast from the crew world, right? In a way. So I think just like my other advice of you need to take free jobs, you need to get out there and be acting. And if you're not getting work, you need to start generating your own work, right? Because you got to have an acting reel, you got to have a resume, you got to have headshots, you got to have a regular place where you're taking classes. Um, Acting requires, it is something you do with your body. It's a muscle that you got to work out. So, some people can avoid taking classes because they keep getting cast and stuff, right? But whenever you have a downtime, you need to be taking classes locally. And even if you go, well, yeah, but I'm sort of advanced. Well, great. You still got to take classes because it's a muscle and you got to work it so that you're ready. I think that auditioning is a muscle, right? When can you go to the casting agency? As soon as you want. You can go right away. They may not always be interested right away. And the reason why they're not interested is because they don't see a financial return in what you're doing. It's not because you're not talented, it's they're not seeing the financial return yet. Some of these casting agencies, especially for commercial work, now don't get me wrong, commercials are where the money is. And you want them because you get paid. And you can get paid later too if you're an actor because there's sometimes they have to keep paying you later. That's the big money. You want it, right? Commercial agents want to be able to put people in a box. They want to say, hey, look, I look at you and you're the best friend. I know you want to be the lead, but I don't see it. You're the best friend. So they need to see best friend stuff on your reel, right? The commercial agents look for different things than the feature agents do, right? Or the TV people do, you know? So I think you got to know your niche and you have to exploit it so that you have somewhere to start, right? And then you can branch out after you've sort of got that niche really carved out for yourself. You know, my friend John always says, hey, I specialize in playing freaks, geeks, and nerds. You know, and you're like, okay, I see it. I looked at John and I see it. So that's what those are the types of roles that he got. You know, and it wasn't that he hasn't been able to get other things, but that's the bedrock. That's the core point. So I think, you know, the one thing I'll tell you is as soon as you go to that agency, they're going to ask for new headshots. They're going to ask for they're going to ask for you to tweak your reel and things like that. But if you don't have a reel and you don't have a website, you need to work on it right away. Even if it's just you doing things to camera as a start, and then it can get better from there. Because I'll tell you, when I'm looking for talent, sometimes I get stuck. It'll be 2 o'clock in the morning and I need somebody right away. And I'm like, I just need to hear them speak. There has to be a reel because I like you'll choose somebody and they'll be like, oh, they have an accent. They can't have an accent for this role, you know. I want to mention this one thing about actors. There's a guy named John Savage. If you haven't heard of him, he's a really, really established actor. He was in a movie called Deer Hunter. And I worked with him on a movie in Los Angeles that I was shooting. And it was at the end of the movie. And he said, he came up to me and he said, hey, what do you got next? And I was like, you know, John, I'm not sure what my next job is yet. And he goes, well, I just want you to know I'm available and my rates are reasonable. And I thought, whoa, whoa, like you were in a movie that was nominated for an Academy Award. Like, and that's how he operates is I'm available and my rates are reasonable. Not that I'm free, but I'm reasonable and I want to work and I'll work for you. So I do recommend you consider that approach because boy, I like it.
And like it makes things easier on the crew perspective too, of like, oh, I don't have to look that far in advance for someone I trust and I know is talented. So
Yeah.
really good. Yeah. Our last question for this webinar. Um, Someone asked, what advice would you give to filmmakers trying to get a finished indie project produced or distributed to places other than YouTube or Vimeo?
So there are distribution companies, but they specialize in different things. So you have to do your research. So we're talking about a project that is finished, correct, Jandy? So when you have a finished piece, you know, you can do the festival route. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. And sometimes good things will happen there. And sometimes there'll just be a bunch of filmmakers sitting around looking at each other. But even when filmmakers are sitting around looking at each other, somebody there got distribution on their last project, maybe, and you can learn about a company. There are actual distribution groups on LinkedIn and on Facebook that you can go to, and sometimes it's just filmmakers complaining about distribution companies, but sometimes they're talking about ones that, you know, did them all right. I think you also have to research projects that are like yours that have successfully been distributed and figure out what companies did the distribution. Because if they like that project and that project is a lot like yours, and they made money on it, then they may be looking for another one because people saw that and they saw that from them, so they can maybe they can see that in your project too. So I do think that's something you can do. Also, in your list of advisors, hopefully you have someone who is making the type of work that you yearn to make. And they will see your film and be able to advise you again in a similar way. There is a local distribution company for features called Hawk Hill. So you can look up Hawk Hill, but they do features. So if you're making a short, oh, it's tough with shorts. There is some distribution options, but not that many. Um, but I do think for features, there is an opportunity, but you've got to find other pieces like yours that are getting distributed and then go to those companies and look for distribution.
All right, yeah, that's really great advice, actually. Yeah. Well, this concludes our webinar. Thank you so much, PJ. Yay! For sharing your incredible insights and stories with us today. Um, if you guys want to know more about PJ, please check out the 48-Hour Film Festival website and the Goat Milk Fudge website in the chat, as well as PJ's email if you would like to get in contact with him. And thank you again so much, PJ, for being a part of our first webinar. It's so exciting. So yeah, yay. Everyone take care and have a great rest of your night. Thank you.